the nature of human existence is that we go through cycles of effort and then renewal, effort, then renewal. And it's almost programmed into us, almost at the biological level, that whether we like it or not, we can't stay awake forever. We have to sleep, because rest is part of renewal. And so, in this sense, every cell in our body is renewed. I think they say every 7 years or something like that, that every cell will be replaced. It's a good thing it doesn't happen quickly. You might notice it, you know. Sorry, I'm having a cell transplant today. That's why I'm a bit cranky. But renewal, there is a wisdom about renewal. And of course, you get that little prefix onto the word, RE, and you'll see that in all kinds of renewal-like words in English, like even rebirth is, of course, a cycle of rebirth, born and again and again, and refresh or revitalize or renaissance, you know, which would be, of course, the French for rebirth. And all of these words all talk about the cyclical nature of human kind of existence. And so renewal is a way to revitalize ourselves. And we need renewal, and the renewal may come from different parts of our life. For instance, sometimes you can need to renew your mind. Sometimes it's your heart that needs renewal. Sometimes it's your body that needs renewal. Sometimes it's your kind of goals that need renewal. So different parts of our life require renewal. So the process of renewal isn't a singular process. It's a process that's very specific to what needs renewing. And some kinds of renewals then either fit that need or they don't fit that need. So renewal can be quite intentional. You can do something about renewal. For instance, most people will admit that at times they're in a slump or they're just not doing as well as they were doing, something like that, and may need to kind of re-energize themselves. And so the question is, how do I get myself out of a slump? That's a renewal question. And so renewal can come from not having an answer to that question, but searching for answers to that question. Why am I sort of lethargic? Why am I flat? Why is all the good gone out of things? Why am I depressed, or whatever it is that is the cause for renewal. And of course, like anything else, renewal can be a need that needs to be met, and you need to find the thing that is the right antidote to what you have. So if, for instance, you haven't seen anything inspirational for a while, then renewal might be seeking inspiration. That you are hungry for inspiration, you feel uninspired. So the very absence of inspiration creates an appetite for its sort of antidote, which would be to get inspired. And of course, people who search out inspiration will find it. People that don't believe there's anything inspiring to be found won't find it. And people that won't make the effort won't find it. But people that do seek inspiration and know they need it will find it eventually. There are all kinds of things that can inspire us, often in unexpected ways, actually. But nonetheless, people do find inspiration. And so you can make the process of renewal for yourselves intentional and very specific. Because, for instance, a good friend of mine here in Australia, his son committed suicide about a week ago. And after a long struggle with depression and whatnot, but a young guy, and the family, of course, is devastated, as they should be. But that's not something that you can get over in a weekend. Like to rebuild, to renew oneself after such a setback may be something that you have to manage for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that things don't get better, but it does mean that you need an antidote to the devastation that is equivalent to the, the devastatedness of the experience. And these aren't, you have to have something that's up to it. For instance, if you're going to kind of change your leadership to kind of reinvent yourself in terms of leadership, and you need to renew it to reinvent yourself, then how much are you going to put into it? Why that's important is some people, if they're going to stay relevant, have to kind of re-equip themselves because they're now out of date, they're not up with things, they're really, the best message of 10 years ago isn't really going to cut it if you've really got to be up with things today. But to get up with other things today, you're going to have to invest in some rebuilding, some learning, some new insights, a whole different way to go at problems. And that might require some sizable investment to get there. Now, if you do it, you can catch up and, be very up with the play, but you would have to make that investment. If you don't, then you aren't going to renew enough. You'll fall short of where you want to be. So the nature of the renewal has to be kind of in sync with the challenge that's there for renewal. For instance, it's been an ancient kind of thing, what we now call sabbaticals, are an ancient way in which people recognize the need for renewal, that every once in a while you really have to step back for a sizable period of time to kind of recapture yourself. Well, the reason for it is because in shorter periods of time you can renew yourself, but there are times when you need a longer period, a kind of deeper renewal. In this sense, a holiday of 1 week a year is great, but it doesn't take care of everything. And there are times when you really might want a holiday that was a lot longer because there are just some things that need to go deeper. So the proportionality of the renewal up against what it is that needs renewing is worthy of thinking about, and also the fit. For instance, if what you need is to improve your thinking, then you're not going to get that from jogging or going to the gym. That's great for the body, but it may not be good for the mind. The mind has its own kinds of appetites. You got to feed the mind, not just the body. Similarly, if your problem is spiritual, then you need spiritual remedies. You need something that's good for your spirit. And to cultivate the spirit is a different exercise than cultivating the body or the mind. Same with your heart. If your heart has its own appetites, its own needs, and you need a kind of antidote that's good for your heart. So thinking about, well, what would be these things, these antidotes, these forms of renewal? Well, there are actually millions of them, I suppose, because lots of things people have relied on for renewal. For instance, Deb and I were just talking about just yesterday about the people that rely on meditation as a form of renewal. And meditation's been used for a very long time for people as a way to kind of keep centered and get their energy back and to stay calm in the middle of things. So, there's a good example of something that's served people well. Others, it may be new experiences is what's renewing for you. If you've just been doing the same old all the time, then you really want something a little different. So adventures and kind of novelty things in a life can be quite renewing, if that's really what you need. For others, the renewing may be something as simple as to take up enjoyments that are very replenishing to you. For instance, many people tell me that many ordinary activities are actually quite renewing, like gardening. They would find gardening very renewing. I wouldn't do it for everybody, but a lot of people would find gardening. Or people tell me that cooking can be very renewing, So what are the enjoyments in life that are sort of a good way for people to restore themselves? And these activities, again, I know people that talk about walking in nature, or just being in natural settings as a kind of renewal. And if you don't have that in your life, then you're never going to get that kind of refreshment that comes from, being around nature. Another kind of example of renewal would be essentially to be with people that you share a lot in common. Can be very renewing for people. So many people will say that. It was really nice to spend time with these people. I came away really recharged and refreshed. It was so affirming and whatnot. So the types of renewal are very personal and are almost like the fit for that for that person. And so what might be renewing for me might not be renewing for you. So in this sense, our needs and our character determine the types of renewal that are going to do the trick. A good friend of mine that works with me a lot, her name's Lorna Sullivan. She's going to do the Camino. Yeah, well, it's... Yeah. Well, she's always up for the next adventure, and so the Camino, which is a kind of traditional kind of Christian religious pilgrimage, she's going to do 45 days. So, I mean, and she's hoping that that'll be kind of recharge her and so on. And there would be examples of pilgrimages that have been renewing for people down through the centuries. I was looking at one in western Tibet, which is Mount Kailash. And 4 different major world religions use it as a mountain you go to, and you walk around the mountain. But this is 18,000 feet by the time you get to the mountain. Then you got to walk around it. So it's either renewal or death for some people. And but the point is that these kinds of sojourns are done for the soul for a lot of people. It's good for the soul to go on a pilgrimage. Another example would be fasting. Fasting has been a form of renewal, been present in multiple cultures, that people fast as a way of cleansing and purifying themselves. And so there's a whole kind of science of fasting and things like that. Another would be learning. People have found learning to be very renewing, to put themselves in a situation where they grow and develop in some way, so they're learning something, and that's very satisfying. Another form of renewal, again, these are just examples of different types of renewal, would be simply encountering people that are very different from you. And, or, where you find people that just come at things in a way that's quite unexpected, it can be quite renewing. So many people, for instance, seek that out, seek to be with a different crowd so they get out of the kind of rut of the same old people that they're with all the time, and they're with people that are a little bit different. And again, that can be done intentionally, that people think, I need new influences. I'm too sort of stuck in my own thing. So the means of renewal are potentially, in theory, endless. As long as they kind of do the trick, though. They have to be something that gets you what you need to do. I was quite struck where I was at Deb's place last night watching the Big Loser. What's that program? Biggest Loser. Now, it was very interesting that these people were so courageous. And, well, first of all, the show makes no sense, but the fact that people would, kind of tackle a problem, like their weight or something, and then do something with it, is itself a kind of an example of the power of renewal, that they've, been meaning to do something with it in many cases 20, 30 years, and they finally do it. And so making a decision can be renewing. Getting off the fence, finally getting around to it, can be renewing. And so many people talk renewal, but they don't really make the decision and do something about it. And so that might be the best medicine for renewal for some people. How many of you would know people that journal as a form of renewal? That they write, they're diarists and so on. And many people find that's a great way to kind of reflect on their life and get in touch with themselves in a way by simply trying to put it to words, But then there would be kinds of renewals that are kind of food for the soul in a way. I was thinking just how many people think of music as renewing. There's so much, life without music would be a dead life. And so music could be poetry for other people, it could be ballet. Many different art forms are for many people either renewals because they're doing them or they're witnessing them done. There may also be renewals that come from placing oneself in a situation where one is challenged. So challenges are often a form of renewal, and taking up particular challenges. A good example of this is just how many people take up physical challenges. They set some physical thing they're going to do, like the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii, you know, and I think that's what Kim's got her eye on. And so that could be renewing. But for other people, it'd be death, even thinking about it. But there may be other kinds of challenges you could set for yourself that would be quite kind of renewing. For instance, a very good one is to love one's enemy. It can be quite renewing to try to develop an attitude of kind of loving kindness towards people that really push your buttons. You know, can be and kind of an ancient form of renewal. Hmm? Yeah.
Someone annoys you and they first instinct is to say, like, back away, back, and you go, yes, got it.
Yeah. So we're not here urging a particular type of renewal so much as to consider renewal as it might relate to leadership. That leaders that don't renew themselves may, you know, kind of end up kind of flat. And you really want to keep finding ways to renew yourself. And it may simply be by stop being a leader. You can renew yourself by getting off the treadmill. Could, for many people, could be a thing. Or to get back on the treadmill in a totally different way. It could be renewing. So the particular means to achieve renewal as leadership is an individual question. It's not, you know, it's going to differ from one person to another. But the fact that you could get renewed is evident in people that are renewed. And you've all seen yourselves renewed at times, and you've also seen other people that have renewed themselves. So it's not utopian to seek and get renewal. It's actually quite doable, even though large numbers of people don't do it. Even though it would work if they did it, they don't. But, so the question is, if it were good for you, and you decided to do it, the chances are that you would find some form of meaningful renewal in your life. And the roots of it are, what do I need in terms of renewal? What's really needing attention in me that renewal would speak to or address in some way? And that's a kind of dialogue with yourselves, as it would be for all leaders, is what is needed at some deeper level. And of course that means for many people that renewal may be simply facing oneself. And that may be harder than easier. That one form of renewal is certainly sort of self-knowledge and facing up to oneself. And that can be very renewing, but it's also very confronting, very painful, very difficult. But it may have on the other side of it all kinds of benefits, because kind of being true to yourself has often been spoken about as a great virtue. But to do that, you have to kind of deal with your contradictions, your own stuff, whatever that might be. And that can be very painful. But actually, renewal may mean doing things that are actually quite painful, rather than easy things. We live in a culture that says, kick back, go to the beach, you know, have another margarita, whatever. But that isn't necessarily going to be the way to kind of confront things that really do need attention. And the question may be for a lot of people just persuading themselves that renewal is worth the trouble that you're going to go to. And one way to kind of persuade yourself is to talk to people about their own search for valid forms of renewal and their own success or lack of success. It may help you get a fix on sort of where you want to take it. But I do see lots of people, as you would, that didn't invest in renewal And you know, they just don't seem up to their potential. They seem much off their game, so to speak. And so there are real consequences of ignoring the issue of renewal and finding renewal that suits you. You know, finding the renewal that you can kind of build into your life.